Hi guys, welcome back. Dave here at Guertins. Today we're talking about holiday lights. We're going to go over a little bit of everything so that it gives you some options of what you may not know is out there. It's going to be a little bit of a Q&A, but also a show and tell. So we're going to kind of go through a bunch of products. Before I get into it, whether you're kind of subscribed to more of a, hey, I want just a little subtle light in my yard, a little bit of decoration, just to let the neighbors know that I have a little holiday spirit in me, or you want to go Griswold on them, we have a little bit of everything for everybody. So we're going to go over everything. We have a lot to go over, so we're going to go with questions. But real quickly, I'm going to have Terry kind of pan and kind of sweep through and just kind of see some of the stuff that we're talking about. What you're looking at is LED, incandescent. It's a little bit of everything, and some of them are stagnant lights, some of them do things, they flash, they dance, they kind of bring some life to your yard or your Christmas tree. And with that, let's go to some questions.
All right, our first question is, does Guertins offer the large old-fashioned bulbs?
We do. So the question is, do we offer the old-fashioned light bulbs? Usually people, when they say that, they mean like the old nostalgic, big, chunky C9 bulb. Usually it's opaque, different colors. We do offer those. They're ceramic. And this is an LED version of that, but we do offer that too. And they kind of bring back things to your childhood, so we do have those, yes.
Do you carry bulk wire and bulbs?
We do carry bulk wire and bulbs. So here's a good example. These are LED. This is an assortment of colors, but you can get just 25 of white or yellow or orange or blue or whatever. They sell them in 25 packs. They also sell them in 4 packs and LED or incandescent. This is something that you can put inside this wire here. It comes on a spool. We do sell this by the foot. And it will accommodate, this wire will accommodate LED or incandescent bulbs. So it's kind of nice. The sockets are spaced every foot. So you tell us, hey Dave, I want 80 feet or 200 feet or whatever it is. We count it off, we cut it. We give you a male and a female plug for the ends. They just snap right on. And then you pick your bulb theme or color. Some people will do, like, let's say candy cane, they want red and white. One kind of a pro tip is that try not to alternate red, white, but maybe go red, white, red, white. It stands out a little bit better. But yeah, so people pick their different colored bulbs for their different themes. We've seen people do purple for Vikings. We've seen people do green to support military. We've seen blue to support law enforcement. Pink for breast cancer awareness. You can do whatever you want. You can be creative with this stuff. And so yes, we have bulk wire and bulk bulbs. We sell this every year. It's mostly for commercial grade or commercial guys that are out doing houses and bids or jobs, but we do have a lot of weekend warriors that want to tackle this. Usually they want to do the same thing year after year, like a roof line or their peaks or a big picture tree in their front yard. So they don't want to do anything different. They want to keep it the same way every year. This is a great option for that. So you can have your measurements down and then we can just cut and make it so.
Is there a trick to hanging lights in higher or hard to get to areas?
Yeah, so I apologize. I have this guy here. I'll let you just kind of view it, but it's a telescoping pole with a hook on the end, and this guy gets up to 18 feet long or tall, and it's you can also use this as a painter's pole. But yes, so that is something you can use to kind of hang your lights, retrieve your lights. I don't know how many times I hear people say, I pack my lights away at the end of the season, they worked great, and then I come back the next year, undo them, and they don't work. Well, what are you doing differently? Well, nothing. I just put them up and tear them down. Stop tearing them down. Be careful with these things. There are little wires in there, so there's commercial grade wiring, yes, but you can't just stand on the ground and pull them down off your roof. Don't do that. Get on the ladder, do the pole, whatever you have to, take the time, put them away the right way. Sorry, rant is done. But yeah, so we have different ways of kind of putting up lights in kind of cumbersome, hard to reach areas.
What are the pros and cons of LED versus incandescent?
You bet. So pros and cons with LED and versus incandescent lighting. Here's one example. So this is in water. You can see it. These are fused LED bulbs, and they're doing their thing. Just to show you how they can be waterproof. You would never do this with an incandescent bulb. Incandescent, let me start with those. Those are kind of nice because they have a nice warm glow. They can melt the snow off of your shrubs and bushes and actually illuminate your path at night, so they're kind of a safety thing too. They're a little bit more fragile when it comes to wind and rattling outside. They can be hot to the touch. Typically you can do about 3 or 4 strands and then it's kind of done with those. Whereas LED, you can do about 43 sets continuous. Just keep chaining them together. So that's a nice advantage. Energy savings, these are about 85% more energy efficient than an incandescent bulb. On the front end, they're more expensive than an incandescent, but they pay for themselves pretty quickly. So yeah, there's lots of pros and cons to both. There's no right or wrong, and these are, I would say, more durable too, the LED. So most of the stuff that we have here at Guertins is LED, but we have a huge section devoted just to those folks that like that incandescent look. So we do have both.
So Laura, one of our viewers, is asking, can you talk about the candles on the end of the table? How much?
You
How
bet.
long does the battery last?
You bet. So these are Lumineo. They're battery operated candles. We call them flicker flame. They're lifelike candles. Great if you have a cat. They're not going to knock it over and start the place on fire. They're battery operated. They have a timer built in, and oftentimes they're on for 6 hours and then they go off for 18 and then they come on the next day at the same time. So they kind of memorize your timing. What's cool about these is you can actually use a remote control with these. So if you want to put them up high on a kitchen cupboard or something like that, you don't have to get up there and get down every day with a ladder. You can just hit it with the clicker and turn it off. And they come in a number of different styles. There's birch bark like this, there's pine cone, there's glittery, there's red, green, every color you can think of. They're a lot of fun, and they're a safe option.
So how many different sizes with lights does Guertins sell?
Yeah, so I forget how many, but it's probably about 20 to 30 different bulb sizes. On the small side, you're familiar with fairy lights. Those are like rice lights. They're tiny little lights, and you can buy those usually in battery operated or in plug-in. So we have that, and then it kind of goes up to micros, which is kind of like this, what you see on the table here. This is basically a micro or a mini rice, some people call it, and those are sold on a spool like this guy. From there it goes to 5mm, which is like an eraser on a pencil. That's kind of what that size is. From there it goes to C3, which is kind of like a diamond look. And then it goes C6, which is kind of what this guy is here in the jar. Some people call them strawberries. Actually, before this one we have Gumballs, and we have G12s. They're basically a round version of this. After C6, it jumps to C7, which is like a nightlight size. And then C9 is about the biggest that we carry. You can go bigger, but it's more traditional bulbs. It's not going to be your Christmas looking bulb. We have incandescent and LED, different shapes. We have flicker flame candle for the candles, replacement bulbs, a number of different sizes and colors and styles.
So we have a viewer asking, why should I consider fused light strand as opposed to replacement bulb strand?
You bet. So the question is, why would we do fused versus replacement bulbs? So an example is, this is an example of a fused light bulb. It's fused into place, which means it's glued into that socket. It is not coming out. That makes it waterproof. Obviously you can see it's working here. This is not that you would do this, but this is just for demonstration purposes. But moisture is the culprit outside with your Christmas lights. Once moisture gets in there, whether it's a wet, soggy day or you have melt or whatever's going on, if moisture gets in there, it shorts out your line, and it can be down until a day or 2 or 3 until things either dry up or things get super cold. So this kind of fixes that issue. So this is a fused into place bulb. Every socket you see is potential for an error. So what we do here at Guertins is we just lock those into place. We glue them in so you don't have that issue. It just kind of takes that scenario out of the equation. The opposite would be kind of a replacement bulb, which is something you could screw in or pop out. You can move down the wires and plop them out of the socket. We have those too. The only problem I have with those is that sometimes it's hard finding those replacement bulbs, and it can be a scramble because not every place has those. We have a handful of those too, where you plop them out and then plop them in, kind of deal. So there's pros and cons to those too. So if a light goes out on this strand, that is not going to come back. It doesn't mean the rest don't stay lit, but it's not going to come back. Whereas a replacement bulb, you could, in theory, you could unscrew that and put a new one in. So there's a pro to that. So I like both, but I use these myself on my house. So and I've had good luck with them for about 5 years.
How long do those lights generally last?
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was going with this. So the LEDs, you know, if you take care of them, you can get 5 to 10 years out of them, believe it or not. I'm on, I think, 5 to 7 years on mine, and they've been really good. Guertins actually offers a 3-year warranty on their Gabriel set, which is a nice thing. But it all kind of depends on how you take care of these. You know, don't throw them around and don't beat them up, but you'll get, you know, about 5 to 7 years if you take good care of them.
I also want to just mention, Erica says thank you for the information on the candles using a remote.
Oh, good. Thank you, Erica. Ricky.
So you've been kind of talking about maintenance of lights. We have a viewer asking, how do I maintain my lights so they don't burn out and I can get more mileage out of them?
Yeah, so just taking care of them, you know, packing them away nicely. What I personally do is I just coil them around my hand and put them in a Ziploc, and that's it. At the end of this, or the next season, unraveling them is a lot easier. So just, yeah. The other thing I want to say about maintenance is that if you have a lifelike Christmas tree, we're all aware the bulbs start to pop out, start to go bad on them. So it's important to check your trees every year. What happens is if a bulb goes dead and you don't see it or miss it, it becomes 2 bulbs and then 3 bulbs and then 4 bulbs and so on. It's called cascading, and what it is it starts stressing out the other bulbs on that line, and once those bulbs blacken out, they are dead, as the socket is too. The line is not going to come back even if you put a replacement bulb in there. So you really have to keep an eye on those, especially incandescent bulbs on a lifelike tree. You want to keep up on those, on changing those. So if you see something that's out, don't ignore it and say, oh, it's fine. Get on it, because if you don't, one becomes 2 and so on, and it cascades, and then the tree is dead, and you'll have to cut those off and replace the entire line. The line is no longer good.
So another question is, are these lights only good for the holidays, or is there something else I can use them for?
Yeah, so the question is, can you do anything else with these lights? You certainly can. So my daughter graduated from high school last year. We did a grad party for her last spring, and so we got her high school colors, and we kind of bought them now, knowing that we couldn't find them necessarily in the summertime. So we did that. We decorated a big tent with them, and it was a lot of fun. We had her school colors. Other things you can do is a lot of people do hockey rinks in the wintertime. The rinks in their backyards. So they'll do the blue line with blue, obviously, underneath the ice. The red circles, they'll do, you know, all that stuff, and then they'll illuminate from above with warm white, you know, something kind of warm whitish, and it just kind of it keeps them playing hockey, you know, a little bit further into the night. So might not be great if you're the neighbor, but whatever. But yeah, there's different options you can do with these. You know, you can also illuminate things too from below or above. You squirrel them away so they're not visible, but they give off a nice glow. So it's a nice option too.
So you might have mentioned this earlier, but which types of holiday lights last the longest?
Yeah, LED. So which lights last the longest? Definitely LED. Like I said, anywhere between 5 and 10 years if you take care of them. There's very little maintenance with them. You can rattle them in the wind. You can submerge them in water. I mean, you can do a lot with these guys. Incandescent, not so much. You know, they do burn out a little quicker, but they also have a nicer glow in some cases. So it's hard to say for sure as far as mileage, but yeah, I would say, you know, a few years at least.
You mentioned a little bit about storing your lights. Is there a better way to store holiday light strands to prolong their life?
Yeah, you can store them in. We have these bins. They're basically wire holders, and so you can do that. You can also, when you're using them, we have the waterproof boxes that you can use for your plugs, your junction areas, so we have that for using for out in the elements. But yeah, there's basically just keeping them in a dry area is a nice thing. Don't leave them up all spring and all the way into the springtime. They won't last as long. Squirrels like to chew on the wiring. I've heard different schools of thought of that. Sometimes they like to sharpen their nails and their teeth on the wire. I've also heard they use it for nesting. But anyway, squirrels can be the enemy on these things. So put them up, take them down religiously every year. So don't wait too long on them. But yeah, you can pack them away and they'll be good for years to come.
We have a viewer asking, how many strands of regular Christmas tree lights can I safely plug into one outlet?
Yeah, so how many strands can you plug in consecutively before you have to start a new plug, or you'll pop a fuse? So with LED, RC6 for example, you can do about 45 sets continuously. So you can get a lot of mileage out of these, which is that's a long ways. Incandescent, about 3 or 4, and then you have to go to a new plug. We've experienced that here too. You know, when we set up our displays, we kind of grumble about, oh, more incandescent, so we gotta sometimes start more plugs and more, you know, breakers and things like that. So, but yeah, about 45 and about 4 is the short answer.
What's a globe ice lantern?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a deal here. This is a these are called ice globes or ice lanterns, and this is something that it comes with a balloon, and you fill it up with water, freeze it. You can either freeze it totally solid and illuminate from below, or you can actually freeze lights into the ice through inside the balloon, and obviously not the plug part, but there's some photos here, and you can do different things with these. It's not just meant for the holidays, but you can do I've seen people do a shrimp platter with this guy. This guy did a bird bath, so you can kind of get some different ideas. Here's a picture of the balloon setup. But yeah, so I do these every year too. I've heard of people using food coloring to make them kind of wacky. You can also do lights from below. Some people will do an ice lantern, which I don't have out here right now, but it's a hollow center lantern, and what you can do is you can put a candle inside the middle of it, and they actually make special candles for it so that don't produce soot, so it doesn't blacken the ice. But that's another option. So there's lots of fun things you can do with ice. I've actually heard of people taking an old sledding sled, fill it with water. Once it's frozen, they break it up into just odd-shaped shards, stick that in your snow, and then kind of illuminate that. So there's some fun stuff you can do with ice.
And our last question is, what do you think of those Gumball rice lights?
Yeah, so Gumball rice lights. So these are rice lights on a spool, and we have these for gumballs as well, which is like basically the size of a gumball. They're a G12 in most cases is the size of it, and they're LED, and they're really cool. They kind of shake things up, because a lot of times you see the traditional bulb, the T5, the mini lights. Some people get kind of sick of those, so just a different size or shape of bulb can kind of make things a little bit more creative. But yeah, come in, we can check everything out, and we'll walk you through everything. And come in with your questions. We like your feedback. Show us pictures of what you've done with your roof line or your house, your setup. We'd like to see that stuff. But that's it for me, and thanks for tuning in.